Hi, I'm Patricio Lagarza Sanchez from the group 116, and today I'm going to explain you our application activity. This activity, I'm in charge to explain you the example of psychology.
Okay, now I'm going to explain you the psychology example. I choose the behaviorism of John B. Watson. What is it? Well, behaviorism, also known as behavioral psychology, is a theory of learning which states all behaviors are learned through interactions with the environment through a process called conditioning. Thus, behavior is simply a response to environment stimuli. The behaviorist movement began in 1930 when John Watson wrote an article entitled Psychology as the Behaviorist Views It, which set out a number of underlying assumptions, reading methodology, and behavioral analysis. The methodology he used was the following: field technique, because he said, all behavior is learned from the environment. Since John Watson did several studies in which he used the behaviorism, one famous and controversial experiment is the one called the Little Albert experiment. Now I'm going to explain you what is the experiment about. The little Albert was a 9 month old infant who was tested on his reaction to various natural stimuli. He was shown a white rabbit, a monkey, and various masks. Albert, described as an on the whole solid and unemotional, showed no fear for these stimuli. However, what did startle him and caused him to be afraid was if a hammer was struck against a steel bar behind his head. The sudden loud noise would cause little Albert to burst into tears. And the results were that after several pairings of the rat and noise in 2 sessions 1 week apart, Albert reacted with crying and obedience when the rat was presented without the loud noise. By now, little Albert only had to see the rat and he immediately showed every sign of fear. He would cry whether or not the hammer was hit against the steel bar and he would attempt to crawl away. The experiment was used to prove the theory of behaviorism, which it was proved in this experiment, a cruel experiment, but it was used to prove the theory. And this is all for our example of psychology. Thank you for listening.
Hello, my name is Jorge Figueroa Morales. I'm from the team 2 of the group 116 and today I'm going to talk about you of the Montessori method. What is the Montessori method? Montessori method is a fundamentally based on the need to respect children's underlying abilities, considered as the hope of humanity. She understood that through freedom in the early years of psychosocial development, the child will become an adult with ability to cope with life's problems. To do this, she designed a comprehensive pedagogical program that covered all subject areas: mathematics, language, science, history, literature, art, or music. Methodology that applies is the field technique, because children are considered as little saints who seek to discover the world based on experimentation. Maria Montessori was clear that children must be given the opportunity to investigate and experiment freely. Montessori made a lot of experiments, and I choose to design a special environment for better learning experiences. The experiment consists in the environment is prepared by the teacher taking into account different work areas in which the child can learn freely. Each corner must have specific materials for each part that they want to develop in the child. For example, plants, costumes, storybooks, painting, clay, among other materials. Finally, the results of the experiment. The results are that they allow the development of more activity learning process and thought about the individuality of each one of the students.
Hi, my name is Sharon Nicole Floresoni from the group 116, team number 2, and today I'm going to be talking about following directions from social skills. Following directions with Philip Zimbardo, director of Related Experiment. What is it? And what does it consist? Following directions? It depends on the degree of the order given and how much of the person with the assigned task needs to give. In order to complete the given task or request, the person needs to analyze the request of it. Methodology, field technique. Zimbardo decided to test how far people could go to complete a task by doing an experiment in which compromise to a role or a given task, even request, could take people to. Roles were assigned, and compromise to a given direction was added to it. How far can people get using as an excuse that they were just simply following directions. An experiment was the Stanford Prison Experiment. In what does it consisted? Zimbardo decided to recreate in a bigger degree a similar experiment as the Milgram experiment. For such experiment, he made an announcement, giving $15 and people could freely volunteer to the experiment. For such experiment, the volunteers were taken into a real aspect fake prison. Then in such prison, they were assigned roles, such as prisoners and guards, and even Zimbardo interpreted a role, being the superintendent of the guards, meaning he could elect some of their actions. This experiment started very sadistic, meaning the guards took advantage and didn't abuse physically since it was prohibited, but psychologically of the prisoners. This experiment was planned to last about 2 weeks, but after 6 days it was cancelled due to results of it. Results. Zimbardo explained that it was clear to see how even a good person can change in a given environment. But more importantly, the behavior of the people when they can cause the excuse that they were just simply following directions and how far they can get for a request. The experiment resulted in such a way that it showed people effectively change when they are under a request. Just as Zimbardo concluded, even good people change when they are just simply following instructions.
Hello, my name is Emilio Arturo Lizalde Perez. I'm from Group 116, and I'm from Team Number 2, and I will explain social sciences applied to history. First of all, what is historical method? Well, the term historical method refers to the collection of techniques and guidelines that historians use to research and write history from the past. Secondary sources, primary sources, and material evidence, such as that delivered from archaeology, may all be drawn on, and the historian's skills lies in identifying these sources, evaluating their relativity, authority, and combining their testimony appropriately in order to construct and accurate their reliable picture of the past events and environments. Okay, now let's see an example of the historical research. We will talk about the Industrial Revolution. But first, what is Industrial Revolution? Well, in modern history, the Industrial Revolution is the process of change from an agrarian and high-income economy to one dominated by industry and machine manufacturing. These technological changes introduced novel ways of working and living and fundamentally transformed society. And now, we will see the steps of the historical research. The first step is to identify an idea, topic, or research question. Then, conduct a background literature review. Next, we need to refine the research idea and questions. For next, to determine the historical methods will be the method used. Now, we need to identify and locate primary and secondary data sources. That to evaluate the authenticity and accuracy of source materials. And finally, we need to analyze the data and develop a narrative exposition of the findings. Thank you for your attention.
Hello, my name is Galia Aulas Garcia, and today I'll be explaining the comparative approach. So, we're going to start with its definition. What is it? It's a consequence of the recognition of the existence of diversity. The variety of forms and processes, as well as social structure and behaviors, leads to the study of two or more objects that have common elements and different features, with the aim to explain the cause of those variations. Here we can see an example where this approach was applied, which is the book written by Emile Durkheim called Suicide, a Study in Sociology. What does it consist of? In the 19th century, Durkheim studied suicide rates with the help of different official suicide statistics between Catholics and Protestants and examining different cultural and social groups found in the same society. He found out that Catholics had a lower suicide rate. He thought that this happened because of how strong their forms of social control and cohesion were, unlike Protestants. He also developed 4 types of suicide: anomic, altruistic, egoistic, and fatalistic. The methodology used here is documentary research. Durkheim thought that having a scientific backbone would make his project more rich and valid, so he examined the suicide statistics provided by the French government. Currently, this book is recognized as the first modern example of an organized and consistent way of using documents for a social research. As a result, Durkheim concluded that suicide can also be an outcome of social factors. In fact, he thought social integration is a factor. He explained that the more someone is socially integrated, the more they will feel attached to a society, and that will make them feel like they belong to a certain place or a certain group of people, so that reduces the chances of them committing suicide. For that reason, the less socially integrated somebody is, the higher the chances of them committing suicide.
Hi, my name is Ana Sofia Flores Betancourt. I'm from group 116, and today I'm going to talk about critical rationalism. What is it? It's an epistemological philosophy advanced by Karl Popper on the basis that if a statement cannot be logically deducted from what is known, it might nevertheless be possible to logically falsify it. Methodology. File technique. File technique responds to experimental and observational methods, and critical rationalism arose out of the breakdown of Popper's first justification attempt to account for scientific progress. Example. The classic example is making a statement such as, all swans are white, which is disproven by a black swan. Popper didn't believe that theories were the end of research, they were the beginning.